for joining us today, Ariana. My name is Chris Engel. So I am out of the Bay Area in California, and I am a veteran, Army for 8 years. I'm also a military spouse and a mother of four. And today I would just wanted to hear from you, just transparently sharing your own career path and what that has looked like being a military spouse and all that that includes. And of course, the transition, the moving around, having kiddos, and what that has looked like for you. So thank you so much for joining us today. If you would like, if you could introduce yourself.
Of course, yes. My name's Ariana Larmany, and I was an active duty military spouse for 12 years. My husband just recently retired in March of this year.
Yay.
So yes, with 28 years of service. So he
Oh,
went in at the spry age of 18 and has served quite some time. 7 tours to Afghanistan during the war in Iraq,
wow.
and really lived at 27 different locations.
Oh,
So he moved around quite a bit. And
mm,
in our 12 years, we had 7 moves. So we have been through quite a few moves together.
mm,
Um, I'm originally from California, and that's when I met my spouse. That is where I lived. So California, born and bred. Santa Cruz is where I was born and raised my early years, and we moved to the Vacaville, California area a little bit later. So right next to Travis Air Force Base, which kind of feels like home.
mhm.
I am the daughter of a veteran of a Navy SEAL, and my grandfather served in World War II.
Wow.
He was Army, and his troop was actually the first troop into Dachau. So I have a lot of familiar roots with the military, whether that be Army, Navy, multiple cousins in the Marines, and clearly I'm married to an airman, so an Air Force man. So that has been a privilege.
Yeah. Do you get a little bit of slack from the family for marrying someone at a different branch?
They all give a little bit of slack, but because so I have 36 cousins on my dad's side.
Wow.
I have a lot of cousins, and many of them are Marines, Navy SEALs, Air Force, and Army. So we are all about serving our country, and of course, we always give each other a hard time because that's what we do. But it's always in really good fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. I got a little wow, that's just so awesome. Like it's like the family history of like your own parents serving and then your grandparents serving and then how that has bled down to you being a military spouse. And I guess that leads me into my next question. What does that looked like from your
Yeah.
perspective with the 7 moves? What did it look like for you to be a military spouse?
I'm going to be totally transparent in this conversation because I think that it's necessary. I was running multi-million dollar organizations as a district leader in California across the East South Bay, and um, successful. Loved. I was mentoring up to 100 people at one time, many of which, I really supported through getting promotion after promotion, and that was something I was really, really passionate about. So I felt great in my success where I was at in California. Um, and just career-wise, I felt really fulfilled, I think,
Mm,
overall. And
yeah.
initially, when my husband and my now husband and I, of course, we were dating at the time, we kind of had to make a choice, a hard choice, which was for me to move with him to Pennsylvania, so to Philly.
Mm,
And he was going to be working nearby at a base in New Jersey.
Okay.
So when I made that transition, I initially transferred with my current organization because we had that discussion. They said, we don't want to lose you. We really want you to stay with us. But they did not
Mm,
have the same position. They had something similar. So I did transfer
mm,
with my organization. And when I got there, the position wasn't actually I guess, aligned to this
mm,
location, and they ended up needing to dissolve it within about 4 months. So,
mm.
about 4 months later, they offered me another position within the organization, but it would have meant a 3 hour commute every day, each way. So,
Oof.
3 hours to the location and 3 hours back
Mm,
because they said, listen, we don't want to lose you. This was obviously a problem, but we couldn't figure out the right way to do it in a way that would
yeah.
actually benefit the organization and still have some sort of balance.
Right.
So after this massive move across the country from the West Coast to the East Coast, I had to make a really hard decision after being with this organization for over 5 years.
Mm,
Um, so I decided I was going to let that job go and start looking for additional opportunities elsewhere. And it's interesting because you never realize how much of a network you currently have in the
mhm,
location where you're from. And you've done all of
mm,
this work and this mentorship and created so many partnerships to being in a new location without really that base of people.
yeah.
So that was certainly, it felt pretty devastating to me
Yeah.
because it was something that I knew so well and
Mm,
I was really passionate about. So I went through a big transition when I got there, and there was a lot of ups and downs. And I utilized the Family Readiness Center
mm.
and kind of updated my resume and started looking for new opportunities, not just federal, but really any, which was difficult because during interview processes, people wanted to know a lot about, you know, oh, so you've only been here for so long. Oh, you're a military spouse. Yeah, I'm a
Mm,
military spouse. Oh, so how much longer are you going to be here? This was
yeah.
always a question that came up in the interview. And being who I am, I I'm not going to fluff anything over. My answer
Mm,
was always transparent. Are
mhm,
typically 2 years. I don't know how much longer that may be, could be extended. However, 2 years is the average for us currently.
yeah.
And not a lot of takers. Didn't matter if there was a high competency level or the experience they were looking for. Most of these organizations were looking for people who were going to be sticking around
Yeah.
long term.
Yeah.
Um, so that was certainly a challenge. That was,
Mm,
of course, my first big move. After that, we moved, yeah, 6 more times.
mm,
Um, I decided so about maybe 6 months after that, after looking and interviewing for over, I want to say 14 jobs over
yeah.
that time period.
In 6
Um,
months. Wow.
yeah, yeah. I decided, my husband and I chatted about it, and I was already doing a lot of volunteer work online and volunteer
Mhm.
work with the base. I decided to just return to school and finish my bachelor's degree because that was something that I really wanted to do,
Yeah.
while also supporting some of the veteran-owned businesses that I've supported
Mm,
really throughout my life. So I went back to school full time, and I continued to look for jobs, even if it was something that wasn't necessarily a position in leadership or in business running organizations the way I had been. Just something because I love collaboration. I love to be working with others and
mhm.
be challenged. So about a year and a half later, as I'm working through my degree, we had moved to back to California.
Mhm.
And I was offered some opportunities locally with some of the organizations I had worked with before, which, of course, this is a great benefit of knowing everyone
Right.
and having those networks. So I did go back to work and loved it
Mm,
until our next move, which, of course,
mm.
brought us to a location in Texas. And this one was even a little bit harder because we really weren't sure how long we were going to be there.
Mm,
We knew that it was going to be kind of like a stop off, right? Maybe not even
yeah.
2 years. So I did the same thing. I think that I looked for about 6 months while I was still in school, of course, and had about 12 interviews when I was in Texas,
Mm,
and was told we're really looking for someone who's going to be here long term, who can really help grow this organization or grow this business, or
mm.
someone that's promotion eligible. So I said, all right, I'll keep volunteering. I'll keep finishing my degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I did. So I continued that while going through in vitro fertilization at BAMC Medical Center, actually
Wow.
right there in Texas in Randolph. And so that was our 5th round, actually. So I got pregnant, which was very exciting.
Yeah.
And we were thrilled, and we moved. We were only in Texas for about 8 months, 9 months actually,
Mm.
before we were moved again. So once we got to our next location, same thing. You know what? I said, I'm gonna hunker down and I'm gonna finish my master's degree.
Mm.
So I did my bachelor's and then got my MBA and said, all right, I really want to work for the Veterans Administration. I'm passionate about veterans. I've always um, volunteered with veteran-owned businesses. I've always supported a lot of my family who is military and veteran, and I want to be a part of it. I want to help
Yeah.
support the Veterans Administration and what they're about.
Yeah.
And I turned in 324 application packages over the course of 8 months.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh my God, I just got chills. I was like, whoa,
Yeah, a
so
lot of
many.
application packages. And I'm talking from cover
Wow.
letters to, of course, your resume. I was still obviously active duty military spouse, so preference,
Mm.
documentation,
Wow.
and everything else that is clearly, all of your degree information. And I went through that. I had my package down and I submitted, and I didn't stop there. I
Mm.
would see who was the hiring specialist for that opportunity, and I'd reach out directly about 7 days later, or I'd note when the opportunity was going to close and say, hey, I know this job opportunity just closed. I'm
Wow.
really interested in working for the Veterans, Benefits Administration or Veterans Health Administration, and
Yeah.
here's really what I can bring to the table. Here's why I have a gap in my
Mm.
employment history. This is what I've been working on, and here's what I've been doing. And about 90%, I would say at the time, I didn't ever receive a response. And when I did, it was typically, you weren't found eligible for this opportunity. And, thank you for reaching out. If we determined that it is different once we, finish
Mm.
qualifying these certs, we'll let you know. And it wasn't really until I started reaching out in other ways. So I connected with you, Chris, on LinkedIn because I saw how often you posted and how you really advocated for military spouses. And I said, I'm going to try and connect with this woman because she seems like a human, like she's putting the human back and human resources for the Veterans Administration. Let me just, and you know what? You responded. And that, just the simple response, like, hey, my gosh, thank you so much for reaching out. Like, can you send me your CV? Like, tell me who you are. Tell me a little bit about yourself. That made me feel so valued, just that someone responded, and in a way that was just so respectful and kind, and human, just human. So the process, right? It's a struggle for military spouses for sure as you move,
Hmm.
but there's so much to be gleaned from both
Yeah.
the great opportunities and the negative ones, because I know how I will always treat people in the hiring process or candidates ever interested in working for the Veterans Administration, because I know how I felt.
Right. Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. So can you share what you do now? Like what was the outcome?
Yes. So, well, so you spoke to me quite a few times. You actually carved out time in your schedule to speak to me about opportunities that were happening in California, opportunities that were possibly remote. And you made it a real priority, based on my timeline of how long I was going to be active duty spouse officially.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was huge, just kind of seeing the other side of it and really how much goes into the hiring process on
Yeah.
on your side, quite frankly. And you allowed me to pick your brain and ask questions about the process, which was huge because I went from feeling like, wow, maybe I'm just not cut out for the federal government. I mean, feel like I'm pretty competent,
Yeah.
but maybe I just don't add value in that way.
Mm.
And so it took me a little while, and picking your brain was huge. You gave me a lot of confidence, and you really helped me feel better about me, because there's a part of this process where you no longer feel like you contribute and that you're valued whenever you get consistent emails stating that you're ineligible or unqualified. And so thank you first and foremost, because that really gave me the confidence to continue with this journey, and knocking on doors and just saying like, hey, this is something I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And I actually went downtown, Charleston. I'm currently in Charleston, South Carolina. I went downtown to the Ralph H. Johnson um, Veterans Affairs Hospital, and I went to their stakeholders meeting. And I knew
Oh.
that I would meet the medical center director. I knew that
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of the people in the community. I talk to people. I still network, obviously. I go to the Joint Base Charleston. I know a lot of people there. So I went to the stakeholders meeting, and I got in front of people and I
Mm.
said, listen, I would love to be a part of this team. I Here's who I am. I've brought
Amazing.
my resume. Here's my cover letter. I am qualified. You want my transcripts? I'll hand them to you right now, because
Wow.
I know it's just such a struggle. So
Yeah.
I really went in person. I shook the medical director's hand and I said, hey, I would love to be a part of this team. I would love to work with the veterans. I would love to support the service lines. I would love to make sure that our veterans have the care that they need. And he's like, tell me what you could do. And I said, I could do just about anything, but I can certainly hire people. I can hire doctors. I can hire
Wow.
nurses. I can hire PAs. I can hire administrators. And I can mentor them too. I can help with training. I can work with
Mm.
education services. You tell me where the needs are, and I'll tell you how my experience translates and how I could really support this organization.
Wow.
And although, yes, the process at times can be quite slow with with I feel like some of these VA systems.
Mhm.
I interviewed a couple of weeks later with the chief of staff and three other individuals within the chief of staff office. And about 3 weeks later, they said, we really want you. We want to hire you. We don't know how to hire you. We have no idea how to hire you, because we're going to have to like call someone in HR and figure out how do we do this. And I said, well, I mean, yeah, because my preference is coming up, or I'm not going to be
Mm.
really eligible for that.
Yeah.
Um, so they really just worked with their human resource team, both on site and the modernized team off site. And
Wow.
although it took about, I would say, 4 months total, which it is quite, that process was a little bit long just because they were really unsure of how to
Right.
navigate it. Um, once they really kind of figured that part out on their side, I came on, and I am now the physician and provider recruiter at
Mm.
Ralph H. Johnson. Um, Yeah,
So cool.
since April of this year. So I've been there since April now, and I just got my first performance standards with
Mm,
outstanding, and the chief of staff wants me to take on all of these additional roles within the organization, which feels amazing, right?
yeah.
Just being told like, hey, you are competent and we value you and we actually want you to do all of these other things. Of course, I say, let's just wait for a little bit because I really want to be great at my job, like great at
Yeah.
my job before I start putting my hands in many things.
Hmm.
And in order to do that, I have to be true to myself that I'm still learning. Although I'm
Yeah.
competent and I'm willing to help people, I am still learning and I want to be the best that I can be before I branch out. So I just feel like this could be just a huge support to other military spouses that are going through similar situations where they
Mm,
don't feel valued and they don't feel like they can get that opportunity or that it's going to happen for them.
yeah.
There may be extra work involved, and sometimes you just have to show up, in person and find other avenues, I feel like, to showcase just that you're able, competent, available, smart, ready, experienced, whatever it may be, or just willing to learn, quite frankly.
Right.
People were willing to just learn and be there, right? Be present. Um, because I know I needed that boost for sure
Hmm.
when I was going through the process, and you did that for me, really helped me kind of realign my goals and say, you know what, I'm not going to give up on trying to find a job within, the VA. I'm going to keep working towards it, which,
Right.
was huge for me.
It's almost like just listening to you share that. It's like you took the military spouse, oh, you're a military spouse, and you made it something positive. Like, I'm a military spouse, and here is what I have to offer. And you
Yes,
went and you just showed them. Do you
that was
mind
it.
sharing what your recruitment numbers are?
Oh my gosh, you know what's so funny is so for physician recruitment, and this is so wild. And you know what's really interesting is, and again, no dig on anyone. This is the first time this role has been placed inside of they're very new to the Veterans Health Administration. So I didn't come in with like this list of like, hey, here's your goals for the first 6 months and here's what it's going to
Right,
look like. And I just said, like, "Oh, let me get started. Let me get a
right.
mentor. Let me train. Let me find my resources." So within the fiscal year, so just from April to October, I sourced and pre-screened, which is kind of like a pre-interview just to determine eligibilities, over 187 physicians.
Mhm.
And I got 36 physician appointments filled. So that goes all the way up to like the chief of gastroenterology, so a chief of GI, um, to
Amazing.
hematology oncology physicians, like a really hard to fill positions. Some coming all the way from California, from Kaiser Permanente or other locations, just
That's
from
awesome.
reaching out and using a lot of the skills, some of which I gained just in the process of trying to find a job, right?
Right,
Looking
right.
on LinkedIn and just like, okay, what's this person about? Oh man, they've got so many years of experience, they've got fantastic ratings. So I had no idea. So 36. And when it came time for me to meet with the WMC team and they said, hey, do you have a review of some of your numbers? Like, show us what you, and I was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll drop it in the chat. And they were like, are you kidding me? No, not at all. Why? Ariana, this is unreal. Like 12 is a huge number for 12 months. Like that's a huge number for just 12 for a year. They're like,
Wow.
you're telling us 36 people in like 6 months. Yeah, I mean that's yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's not even really filling all the vacancies, right? We still have needs.
Yeah.
Um, but those needs affect our veteran and
Mm,
especially in all these specialty services and in mental health and primary care. And that's my job. And they're like, how did you do so many pre-screens? Well, if a GI doctor can only talk to me at 9 o'clock at night, my time, I'm going to talk to him at 9 o'clock at night, my time.
Yeah.
It's going to be what it is, right? I'm not going to tell a neurosurgeon that I'm not available at 7 o'clock at night. I'm
You
going to
that
just,
adaptability.
right? You use your military skills of being
Yeah.
flexible and adaptable to change, and you
Yeah.
utilize that for strength. And I think that we learn so much as military spouses, and so much of that in the moment can feel really hard and can sometimes feel like a negative or a challenge or even a failure. But quite frankly, all of those moments build so much strength and adaptability and flexibility and the ability to really read situations and forecast your life in different ways that translate to being a phenomenal employee to any organization. So I think that they all just add so much value, and all those no's, they led to a lot of yeses later, in my career. And this has made me even better at my job because I want to make sure that people never feel like they're not hearing back from someone. And they're soft, like they know we're going to hold hands until the day they come for their first, for their day on station. We're going to hold hands. And so many of those doctors come, they're, hey, are you in the office today? Yes. My gosh, it's my first day of NEO. I'm like, yeah, I know. I was going to come down and say hi. But they'll come and find me like before I can even go downstairs when they get in. And they're like, oh my gosh, I just want to say thank you. Like this was such a amazing experience from, the pre-screen to, coming in for my first day. And that in and of itself is everything. That's huge to me. So I don't look as much at the numbers as I do at the candidate's experience, right? So I just want that person to feel good and communicated with from the first, touch base and experience all the way to the last, whether they come to work for the VA or not. I just try and lead with transparency and let them know um, what things look like so that they're not flailing in the dark as it may
Yeah.
be at times.
And something you just made me think of with sharing that is when you're giving that kind of onboarding experience to our candidates, especially our doctors, but really to any VA employee, you're showing them that they have value
Yeah.
and then setting that foundation for them. And then they take that and give that same care to our veterans, and is the ripple effect. And that
Right.
is, yeah, it's
I didn't even
unbelievable.
think about it like that, but that's,
It's
culture is
awesome.
is like everything, right? And I truly believe that. And I think that's
Yeah.
yes, 100%. Um, I always hope that I can treat people in a way that makes them also want to, yeah, impact better and care the same way. And
Yeah.
that's what we're here for,
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I know we have a couple more minutes, but would you mind sharing maybe one or two things that you would like to leave with another military spouse, maybe somewhere in the same type of journey that you went through, and what you would like to share with them?
Yes, of course. So for all those military spouses out there, I think that the first thing I would say is where you're at right now is good. It's okay. It's totally where you're supposed to be. And you are a value and you do add value. And you have so much to offer. And remembering that is just as big of a part of the battle as conquering that, right? So remembering to stay well and strong mentally, and remember your mental health is everything. So remember that you are amazing and that you can do just about anything, and see every one of these experiences as a value added learning experience and growing experience because you can take it with you. And the second thing would be ask for help, find your resources, request a mentor. Um, Absolutely never feel embarrassed to ask hard questions. Have people look at your resume, request feedback. Feedback's everything, right? I
Mm.
love to fail because I have a baseline. If I fail at something, I'm like, this is amazing. I love this. Like, I totally messed that up, but I'm never going to do that again, right? Because I just learned this amazing lesson. And it's okay to fail, right? It's okay. But if you receive an ineligible, it doesn't actually mean that you're ineligible. It just means that that's not the right job for you. Continue to look and see what you can do differently on your resume and based on your experience to really translate your skills. And again, always ask another military spouse, a veteran spouse, Family Readiness Center. You have partners. You're never alone. Always feel good asking for help. And if you're, scared or uncomfortable about it, reach out anyways, even if it's just on LinkedIn. Maybe you'll find a Chris.
Yeah.
You would be lucky to find a Chris. I will always help military spouses any day of the week. So I think that we share that in common for sure. But those would be two of the really, really big pieces is don't give up, right? Stick with it. But the most important thing is to remember your value and to remember that so many of these skills that we glean along the way that feel like challenges, they're truly just grooming us to be our best selves.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, it's so inspirational just talking to you. I love it. Thank you so
Well,
much
you're
for
my
doing this.
inspiration. I do truly appreciate you so much, Chris.
Yeah. Well, I can say the same. I feel like, there was a comment. I flew a lot actually with my first VA job between the East Coast and West Coast during COVID, and it never failed. We'd sit down in American Airlines and they would say, "We are in this together." And that quote, I know it was related to COVID, of course,
Mhm,
but I
mhm.
feel like military spouses, the military community, veterans, we're in this together. So like
Yes.
we hold hands and we support each other and we coach each other and we give each other feedback because feedback is a gift and we continue to
Yeah.
elevate. And thank you. I appreciate you so much.
No, I appreciate you. And that is huge. I 1000% agree. Like we should always be building each other up.
Yep.
Anyone ever reaches out to me, I will always root for you. I will always advocate. I think that is um, one of the best things we could do for another human being is be on the same team and be in support of each other's success of
Right.
everything.
Yeah. And I really I appreciate you highlighting the value because I cannot emphasize that enough, that every human being has value and that looks different for everyone, which is what makes us unique. And like,
Yeah,
who would have thought for you, like in this position, all those no's were really yeses for where you are
yeah,
today. So
exactly.
I love it.
That's
Thank you so
exactly it.
much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you. I really, really appreciate you taking the time and dedicating yourself to such an awesome cause so that
Of course.
hopefully this can reach military spouses who really need this support
Yeah,
and they have two more people who they can reach out to if
have their
they
back.
need. Yeah, always have your
Yeah,
back.
absolutely. Well, thank you. Appreciate you
My
and keep up
pleasure.
the great work.
Thank you so much, Miss Chris. I appreciate you.
All right, take care.
All right, talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.